Hey everybody, it's Justin from Bittner Built, and today we're making a really cool, easy project, which is a light-up display box. This is something that I've made with my kids. Every single time I've made one, it's something that kids can make that they're proud of. So this is something anybody can do, and I encourage you to get a youth involved with this. We're going to be making it with one of the free flashlights from Harbor Freight. You can get those with a coupon a lot of the times, or even if the coupon thing isn't working anymore, you can pick it up for like $1.75 for this light. And so by using scrap wood or other things that you have, this is a really cheap and easy project to do. It can light up plexiglass, of course, if you have some sort of artwork on there. It can light up rock collections and anything that's transparent that lights up with light added to it. So I'm going to bring my kids into this video and show you how easy it is today on Bittner Built. All right, so this first way is probably the most unattractive, and basically what my son did was take one piece of wood, cut a groove into it so that the plexiglass Pikachu could sit in there. Shout out to my friend Haven Burton, who's one of the voice actors on Pokemon. And then on the bottom, he just brad nailed in a couple strips of scrap wood onto the sides. And so you can just see it gave the height needed so that we could fit the light control stuff in here. All right, our next design my other son did, which was a Guardian from the video game Legend of Zelda. And this one is 2 3/4-inch pieces of wood. You can tell by the end grained that it is not one solid piece. But so basically what he did with this one was he ran the route on the top piece, and then separately, while they were still apart, he used the router to cut out this hole on the bottom piece. And then all we had to do then was glue it together and sand it flush afterwards. So this was a very easy process because the two pieces make it easier to get your work done when they're apart making this. The final version was done by wonderful Sophia. She was a Ukrainian refugee that was living with us, and she wanted to make a gift for her parents' anniversary. And so we came out here and we took a picture of her parents and put it on the CNC machine and had it cut it out with a diamond drag bit. And on this one, what we did was we took a piece of solid cedar from my yard, and we just took this full block, threw it in the CNC machine to route out this big pocket for everything. And then the CNC machine also did this. Okay, so very first thing is we have our Harbor Freight flashlight that was like $1.75 over there, but these are almost always free giveaway things. They do a lot. So I have a ton of these in the house from just purchases that I got these from. So the first thing we want to do is we want to rip apart the entire casing. Really all I want is the light bar with the battery pack and the power button attached to it. So let's go ahead and just take this case apart. Okay, so we're disassembling this. Take off the 3 screws in the back. There we go, magic. Now, we have this battery casing, and I'm gonna end up cutting this down on the saw because it's just so big for what it is, to be honest. Let's go ahead and remove the batteries right now. There are 4 more screws, 1, 2, 3, 4 to separate the other housing. Okay, I just broke it because that was a pain. All right, now on this unit right here, I want to remove all of the electronics. They're really not held in by much more than pegs. As you can see, it's just a plastic peg. There we go. And then we have the board that's held in by a peg, 2 pegs. There we go. And then there's a secondary light over here. Now, I don't want to use this secondary light, so I'm going to go ahead and snip it. So basically this light bar has 2 wires going to it, so we can remove this extra wire. You can either snip it really close, like I did, pull it, frankly. It pulls off most of the time. So we still have everything together. And just to illustrate, I'm going to go ahead and put the batteries back in. Kick it on, make sure it still works. So if I click the button, ta-da! Now, since there were multiple lights on here, it has multiple clicks to cycle through its different phases. You know, we're dealing with trying to do budget here instead of expensive, so this is more than adequate. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut out this box that has the batteries in it over on my bandsaw. You know, depending on what type of application you're doing, if you have room for this huge thing, cool. Most of the time though, that means you're having a really large enclosure, so I like to cut it down. So you know, I was thinking about it, and since we're making this video for everybody and I'm trying to make it simple, rather than taking this over to a bandsaw, which you know, cutting something very small like this can be dangerous over there, let's go ahead and just use an oscillating multi-tool. Most people are more likely to have this. You can use pretty much any blade you want on here and it will cut through. Plastic is super easy to cut. And what I've done is I've clamped it down with a scrap piece of wood underneath. So as I cut it, if I go a little bit too far, it's just going to hit that scrap piece and not into my table. Okay, so it was quick and dirty. It doesn't need to look ultra pretty, unless you are going to be selling it, of course. But just for our purposes, it's rough and dirty, but I wanted it to be smaller than that big enclosure that we had so it can fit into a small space. Okay, so the difficult, if you want to call it difficult, the most difficult part of this project is over, which was deconstructing this flashlight and kind of trimming it so it's smaller and it'll fit inside something. Now, I had a scrap piece of hard maple that I messed up when I was doing a laser engraving on, so I cut another piece to match it, and we'll just throw that as my bottom, and they'll marry together really well. I'm making this one 5 inches by 5 inches, and what I'd like to do is something different than what I showed you in those other examples. In those other ones, it was just a slit in the top where I was putting a piece of acrylic in to light up. What I'd like to do for this one is, one of my sons has a rock collection, and so he wants to be able to display some of his cool crystal type of pieces. And so in trying to keep this as cheap as possible, I'm going to reuse the plastic front of the flashlight. And so what we're going to do on the top piece is we're going to cut out a round circle, and then on the other side we're going to take a Forstner bit. And these are large bits that will clear away a large amount of material. And we're going to make a bigger area that this will be able to fit in so that I can recess it very close to the hole. But I'm going to make the hole smaller than this whole thing. That way I can glue it on both sides. You won't see it. And the plastic, I keep wanting to call it plexi, but I'm sure it's just plastic, will be very close to the surface of the wood. And then he can put rocks in there and it'll glow pretty well. Now, for the under part, we need to be able to put the battery compartment and the light itself. And so on this lower piece of wood, we're going to basically cut out a huge area. Now, you could do that with a jigsaw, super easy. I'm going to stick to just using a drill on this and showing you how this Forstner bit will do it as well, in case you don't have a saw. So drill press is very safe and easy, and so I'm going to bring my son Benjamin in to help with this part. Okay, so I brought in my son Ben here.
Hi, everybody.
And what Ben's going to do is he's going to remove most of the material in this circle right here. I just drew a rough circle in there. It really doesn't matter, just as long as we get a majority of this area out so that we can fit all of the components of that flashlight. So what I'm going to do is clamp it down so that we make sure that his hands don't have to hold the wood. And by keeping his hands away from the spinny bits of the drill press is a very safe tool to be able to teach your children in the wood shop. So that's what we're going to do. How'd you get so tall? So, you know, a couple other things just for safety with your kids doing this. Obviously, Ben is wearing hearing and vision protection. I have the dust collection going. He's going to wear an N95 mask because I don't have a respirator that would fit him correctly. I also have him up on a very stable stool right here next to me, and I'm going to be directly next to him while he's using it. It would be, it is not as safe for him to be really low and reaching. You need to be comfortable when you're using a tool and at the adequate height. So since I can't lower my drill press, I'm raising the child a little bit, but in a very stable fashion. Also, when using a Forstner bit, you're going to plunge it, and as it starts to bog down, you need to raise that bit up again to clear the chips out. This does not act like your typical spiral drill bit that goes down in. It is removing chips from a large area, but it doesn't have that spiral shape to make those chips travel up and then exit. So you need to plunge it for a little bit and then bring it back up again to clean out the hole, and plunge it again and bring it up to clean out the hole. Okay, so we got our first hole done. This admittedly is a very slow way to do this. It would be way faster for you to do a jigsaw for this hole, but you know, again, we're just trying to be easy with it with my son. So at this point, once you get through with one hole, you rotate it and you do another hole that's overlapping. You do 4 of these holes and you'll have your frame. All right, so Ben finished cutting out all 4 of these. Admittedly, it's not the prettiest, so you could go ahead and use it right here. It is perfectly fine, but I'm going to take the optional step now, and Ben is going to clean this up using a scroll saw. Scroll saw is one of the safer of the saws, if we want to call it that way, and admittedly, we could have done that from the get-go for making this hole, but again, I wanted to show doing it the drill way, and now we're going to take the optional step of using the scroll saw to clean it up. All right, so setting up the scroll saw. A scroll saw is great for something that doesn't have a way to cut in. You can place your unit just like this, and then place the blade in after the fact. And so by doing that, we are not violating the perimeter of our unit right here. Once you put this in, you need to tighten the unit down so that the tension is there and the blade stays put. Okay, Ben, you need to get your safety equipment on, please.
Okay.
And then he's going to get cutting in trimming out all of the excess of this frame. So when you're using this, we turn it on. We keep our fingers away from the blade at all times, so we're going to hold the perimeter of this, not where the blade's going to be. And what we're going to do is move it so that it's cutting on that line. Now don't try and push it too hard, let the blade do all of the work. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and kick up the speed. Okay. See how I'm pushing from here with this? Go ahead. All right, so Benjamin finished cutting it out. Pretty decent for what it is. Remember, this is a kids done project mostly. And so our base is ready to be done. Now what we need to do is prepare it for the light to be able to shine through the top. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to reuse this piece of plastic, and we're going to be putting this underneath. And to do that, I'm using a 38mm or 1 1/2 inch hole saw. And that will be just a slight bit smaller than the skinniest width of this. So when I put it under, it'll be completely covered. And of course, you can see that I have the extra space on the right and left so that I can glue it to the wood underneath. So directly in the middle, we're going to do the hole saw all the way through. And then we're going to flip it over, and we're going to use the Forstner bit again to route out a whole bunch of area so that this can then be recessed right there. So what we want to do is take a pencil on this side and just kind of draw my shape just so we know, hey, we gotta cut out that shape area, okay? So let's get to it. So we're already set up with the Forstner bit, so I'm gonna go ahead and just do that side first so we don't have to change everything out twice. One thing that you do have to do though, when we're routing out this space to recess our piece of plastic, We don't want the Forstner bit to go all the way through, and that's why we have a stop on the side of drill presses. So before I put the wood down, I brought it down and left a gap from the lowest point of the bit, which is actually the spike in the middle. And so then I set my stop gauge, so no matter what, Ben can't take it down farther and penetrate the other side of the wood, which would be bad. It's only going to take 2 passes with this, and he will have all of this space routed out. Now, one important thing, again for safety, since my son's using this, the dangerous part of a drill press, A, is the spinny bit, but 2 is the actual wood piece binding and then spinning and being thrown possibly. And so on my drill press table, I have clamps to be able to hold down this piece of wood, and I'm using my fence. The fence isn't just there for lining up your wood. It's also there because it's a flat surface, and that flat surface prevents the wood from wanting to spin around. And so because I have it clamped down so well, I don't worry about it binding and shooting out at my son. Yep, you're good. It'll stop you when you get to the right depth. All right, so we've finished out our Forstner side. Now we're going to do the hole saw side. I'm going to do this slow and steady.
Wow, that was easy.
Yeah, hole saws are really easy, especially when you have a nice arbor, not the junk that it comes with usually. Hooray! So we got it through. Good job. All right, so we got both of our pieces done. We have the recessed side over here, and then we have the nice pretty hole on this side. It might look like a spirograph got out of control on the back, but on the outside where it counts, it looks pretty good. So happy with that. What we need to do now is go ahead with wood glue and glue these pieces together, clamp them up and wait a little while, and then either hit them with the miter saw if we have some inconsistencies on the exterior, and then sand them flush before we start assembling everything. The glue is dry, Ben's in bed, and it's time to assemble our pieces. So what I'm going to do first is super glue these two together using our old fun method of CA glue and accelerator. Okay. Well, that is amazing. Of course, the reaction of the super glue on that right there cracked my glass. Can you believe that? That's really annoying. Well, okay then. Okay then. Fun. Okay, well, lucky me. I have a piece of plexi. Let's see if it fits. Oh, look, it fits. Okay. It pays to keep your little cutoffs of plexiglass. Well, I guess we're putting plexiglass in here. Wow. Okay. Well, that being said, I'm going to switch over to hot glue now, since CA glue did not like me there. Cool. Are we ready? Make sure not to allow any of the stringing to go over the hole area. Okay. All right, now we have a piece of plexi on the hole. All right, so next step is to get 2 spots of hot glue for the light bar. And I don't want to damage the electronics of this light bar, so I'm doing it when the glue gun is on the cooler side. I had to squeeze that out. pretty hard, and I might even wait a couple seconds just because I don't want to injure the electronics right here. I think we're pretty good though. And now we need to place the battery pack. And so we're just going to put it directly on top of the light. It's perfectly fine to do that. I'm going to go ahead and add some to some high points and even glob some on here. They're not going to be touching the light. And then we have to figure out how we're getting this guy in here. I'd like to have it facing up so that it's easy to press. Now obviously, based on the wires, it does limit me some for where it can go. Actually, this is a great spot because it's very stable. So again, I'm gonna load this down with some hot glue, but I'm gonna wait because right now the hot glue gun is pretty hot and I don't want to throw something crazy hot on there. So I'm gonna give it a little bit of time before I press it on. So I've waited a little bit. I'm gonna test it with a stick real quick just to make sure it's tacky. Okay, it's pretty cool. Nice. So it's all finished. Overall, it came out very nice. I'm very happy with how it looks. It functions exactly the way that we wanted to. You know, this was a kid project with my son, so, you know, we have a lot of leeway in how the final project turns out, of course. Now, this plexiglass was supposed to be this plastic from the flashlight, and since it cracked under the super glue, I had to substitute it with some plexi. So let you learn from my mistakes, and don't use activator with super glue on this piece if you decide to do the same thing. I wish this had been the one there because then it would have been light with this nice reflective silver in the background. Instead, you could see the black of the battery case back here and some super glue. So what I did was frost the glass by taking an abrasive pad on my drill and hitting it to basically really scuff it up all over the place. So now it's really not as transparent as it was before. And so I think that is about the best I'm gonna get for the current version right now. I hope you'll like and subscribe to the channel, and I hope that you'll do some projects with your kids like this. Bringing your kids out into the shop and doing stuff with them is always a great thing. Be safe in the shop, and I will see you in the next video.